Having reached 100 subscribers, at the time when the Ryder Cup was taking place in Bethpage State Park, I thought about what other special events could take place in state parks that would connect the public to these large world audience events. Thinking about Bethpage State Park, it's nicknamed the People's Country Club, formerly a private golf club, and before that known as the Powell Farm, itself called Bethpage by Quaker colonial settlers after a place in the Bible. The Bethpage State Park is more than just a golf course. It includes a polo field, bike paths, playground, and a very dense forest, comparable to Central Park in New York City, which is why Bethpage, on some old maps, has been listed as Central Park. And looking at old maps of Robert Moses and the state parks of Long Island from the 1920s, very much about car culture, bringing drivers to the park. Hold the thought about car culture, as I'll talk about a bit later. But then looking at some of the parks, many of them are accessible pretty much only by car. For example, Captree State Park, famous for its fishing boats. Captree Causeway, also known as the Robert Moses Causeway, there's no room there for bikes or pedestrians. Perhaps when this bridge is rebuilt, it could be given space to pedestrians and bikes, but for now, the only bike path here along the Ocean Parkway is about 10 miles from Jones Beach, so a long trip by foot or bike to Captree. But I still feel like this park could have potential if it's given more transportation options. Then there's the Jones Beach East Bathhouse. Abandoned around 2010 because of budget cuts, it is now being redeveloped as a splash playground because we already have a pool in the West Bathhouse. So why not create an additional attraction at the park while preserving the Art Deco elements of the building? And looking at the history of Jones Beach, it's always been a flagship park with multiple activities. This map from the 1920s shows 20 activities listed for the park at a time when Ocean Parkway was much narrower and Wanto Parkway was a straightway going towards the iconic water tower. Zack's Bay had this 90-degree corner with a stage island, which has since been expanded into the massive amphitheater today, serving as a backdrop for some of the biggest names in entertainment. You can see Jones Beach here is very much like New York's Central Park. What looks like a natural landscape was planted by park planners. So the forest, the trees here, all of that planted on this sandbar. That today, it looks like it's always been that way. But this is a map and an aerial shot of Jones Beach from the 1920s. Looking at Jones Beach since then, the shoreline has migrated as the current carries the sand west and the jetty stops the current from continuing, that the West End bathhouse was closed and redeveloped into the nature center. But looking at the other bathhouses and parking lots, even there the walk is pretty long to the surf. Perhaps the state should consider expanding the bathhouses or changing rooms and the paths to be closer to the water's edge. Because for now, it looks like the ocean's getting further and further away, even as sea levels rise with climate change. Looking at plans for Jones Beach, the amenities only keep on growing with new picnic areas, splash playgrounds, zip lines, rock climbing walls, and inland freshwater marshes, similar to what we have at Broad Channel in Queens. Fresh water surrounded by salt water, a magnet for migratory birds. This is a picture of the Nature and Energy Center at the West End. But when I think of what else could be done at Jones Beach, I still think of it as a place that deserves overnight cabins for the concert goers and people who come there for the fireworks. But there's another use I'd like to see at Jones Beach when it comes to car culture. Long Island was built on cars. Vanderbilt Motor Parkway was the first car racetrack in America and the first highway in America, but it closed down as car racing was dangerous and too expensive. But perhaps in the off-season, I could see Ocean Parkway being turned into a racing strip that would bring car racing fans to this state park. Because Long Island once had a very rich car culture, from the Freeport Speedway to Bridgehampton and Riverhead, and one by one they closed down. So perhaps it's a way of preserving that racing culture on the island with Ocean Parkway in the off-season. A car racetrack that wouldn't compromise the park's landscape, but also the massive parking lots also could be used for some car events during the time when the beaches are closed. Jones Beach has also been in the news because of the offshore wind farms. The Republican politicians on Long Island are against the wind farms, But if the towns won't approve it, perhaps the state parks could. But at the end of the day, these are so far offshore that they are in federal water, not state water. So it's really the call of the federal government, where President Trump initially approved it, but then disapproved it. And I understand their concerns about the cost of the farms, but the environmental impact is minimal and the benefits are there because wind will always be there. So with all this unused public water, perhaps it could be given something beneficial like these wind farms. Because we can't construct islands here, but we can construct something much thinner and useful. Going back to Long Island, on the North Shore of Sunken Meadow State Park, perhaps the sandiest beach on the Long Island Sound, on account of the sand being dredged from the depths of the Sound and deposited along the shore. What was once a town beach was expanded by the state to cover lands along the Sunken Meadow Parkway. People know this park mainly for its beach and the picnic areas, but it's also good for mountain biking. And I think there should be more amenities put on the inland parts of the park, and perhaps a bike trail expanding along the Sunken Meadow Parkway towards other parks on the island. It looks almost like a barrier beach with the Sunken Meadow Creek separating the beach from the inland portions. Recently, Sunken Meadow Park was in the news when a real estate developer in Connecticut proposed a bridge from Connecticut to Sunken Meadow. The idea being that if communities on Long Island didn't want their properties compromised, well, why not use a park? But nature is also a great voice for NIMBY, because having a parkway turn into an interstate highway would also compromise nature and the air quality in this park. Sure, I'd like to see a bridge connecting Long Island to the mainland, but it's more likely that Sicily will get its bridge to Italy before Long Island will, considering the multiple local, state, and federal agencies involved, environmental impact studies, and the cost of building the bridge, and then the cost of traveling across the bridge. For now, what I would like to see at Sunken Meadow and the rest of the North Shore is more ferry service to Connecticut and other communities along the shore, because for now, all we have is Orient Point and Port Jefferson. Going back to Sunken Meadow State Park as it is, the state has plans to expand on the parking, but in a way that's environmentally sensitive, with grass parking lots and permeable paving. That's something I'd like to see. The historic toll booths are being preserved for their appearance, and on the inland parts of the park, there's plans to expand the picnic areas and playgrounds. But looking at the bathhouse and park office, it doesn't look as interesting as Jones Beach with its Art Deco style. Perhaps this brick building could be given a decorative tower or a rooftop restaurant to make this flagship state park even more of an attraction. North of the city is Harriman State Park, which also has a very rich history and multiple amenities, feeling almost like a roof of Hudson Valley as it stands above the suburbs of Rockland County. Today there's only two public beaches there, Lake Welch and Lake Teorati. But there used to be a third, Sebago Beach, not to be confused with the one in Maine. There's a beach in the state of Maine that's also by that name. Sebago Beach closed down in 2011 after hurricane damage, and the state felt it was too expensive to restore. So nature reconquered this beach. The current plan recognizes there are fewer people using these beaches because more people could travel further out, and many people have backyard pools. So instead of having the massive parking lots and the large crescent beach, the beach is being reduced, and some of the space around it is being given to picnic areas and playgrounds, and a daylighted stream connecting Lake Kanawake to Lake Sebago. For now, that stream is underground, but I certainly look forward to this plan, as it would create an additional attraction to this storied state park. Another attraction in the state park that's overlooked by many people is the Anthony Wayne Recreation Area. It used to have a bathhouse with a diving pool, picnic areas, and playgrounds, outdoor fireplaces, but the pool was abandoned a long time ago. This area today is best known for its Oktoberfest and the Native American powwow. An irony, considering that Anthony Wayne was very much a conqueror of the American Midwest for the United States, and his savage tactics against the natives in places like Michigan, Ohio, Indiana. But locally, he was a hero for the Battle of Stony Point in the Hudson Valley against the British. I don't mind the name being preserved, but I would like to see this bowl-shaped parking area redeveloped with more scenic architecture and plantings. So it would fit with the surrounding valley, as well as the stream that flows past the parking area. Perhaps it could be a place for postmodern architecture that's at the same time sensitive to the history and the nature around it. So there's a lot of potential for the Anthony Wayne Recreation Area, just as there is potential for Lake Sebago. Then going back to Long Island, Heckscher State Park, today known for its postmodern camping cabins, the beach, the playgrounds, the cricket field, bike paths. But then there's the abandoned pool. Suffering weather damage from a hurricane being too close to the Great South Bay, it stands in ruins. If the pool can't be restored, I'd like to see it creatively reused as a place for legal graffiti and murals, skateboarding, or concerts, kind of like what McCarren Park was in Brooklyn before it was restored as a swimming pool. In Heckscher State Park, there are signs noting the underwater treasures, the shipwrecks off the coast of Long Island. And just as there are underwater national monuments and underwater national parks, perhaps state park borders could be expanded to these underwater spaces, because they are also part of the state's heritage and a place for people to explore and preserve history. So those are just some ideas I have for the state parks as I hit 100 subscribers in my state parks video series. If you have creative ideas for the state parks of New York, drop it in the comments. Perhaps the agency will read them.